Her name is Kemi. We finally got her name. Why it took this long? I have no idea. We finally know her name, and then she goes away. I blame Deku. He's a chick magnet. Chapter 110 is a continuation of exam where they have to save the citizens, and this time they actually added on the idea of the mentality of these students. I like this addition that actually makes it more appealing to why this exam actually feels like a real exam when it comes to rescuing the citizens. That chapter also introduced another concept, have a villain. They actually spice it up. I could see a lot of people think this might be boring, and I could understand that since it's all focused on the mental state as well as saving the citizens. There is no enemies. Introducing a villain that they have to suppress, which actually going to have the other heroes to collide. We already see the rivalry from a lot of different characters. Therefore, this exam could illustrate on what happens when other heroes work together, even if they are in a bad terms. One of the most interesting part of this chapter is the fact that use the mindset, something that's coming from outside the source, such as All Might being in retirement. The surprising part is the fact they adapt the idea of Stein's words. It actually influenced the heroes, not just the villain. It's actually a nice way to show that that speech has a lot of definition and a lot of meaningful impact to everybody. It seems like more and more you see the reason these future heroes are being influenced in some formal way without really realizing it. It has a lot of impact. The idea of heroes have a lot of definitions. You always get that from the real world and in media. It feels like a real world feeling what it takes to be a hero. This is something I really appreciate this series. I know the settings is somewhat captures the real life aspect. It really makes me happy to see how many things that you could really input real life aspect to the story. It's also worth mentioning with the time setting, it matters so much. Have not All Might being retired or have not Stein given the speech to the world, you would think that these students probably have a lot of different influence and a lot of different mindset altogether. It differs a lot to these characters. Now I like how they utilize a lot of past aspect into something that happens later on. It's something that My Hero Academia is really good at. Is a lot of things means a lot. It doesn't really go status quo. Instead, it actually goes back and refer it to it. You have to think about the environment. You have to think about the scenario. You have to think about how you handle your words. This have a nice segments that showcase the other characters. They have problems to handle the situation. Ochako rushed in without wondering the surroundings. You have Inasa just do a huge blast, but yet he doesn't realize that it is affecting the citizens. And then you have Bakugo just bad mouth and he just pretty much tells them just save yourself and leave me alone, which is funny, but at the same time you see a lot of characteristics. You see their flaws before they will improve themselves. See the sense of caring of how to be a hero in the sense of how to handle the situation that's not just about you and your power, but rather caring about people. This is something that selfishness is not required, as well as rushing things. There's a lot of depth in this whole entire rescue operation. However, people would think this is actually just a very slow paced thing, and I could see that. Thankfully, the exam introduced a villain, so you pretty much have the sense of a war zone from a video game, where you have a game type that you just play a domination and capturing base. However, you get a villain out of nowhere, and you could kill that villain in order to get a lot of points or a huge reward. This is something that's very crucial to the exam. The villain is being played by Gang Orca, which I have to say the design is very intriguing. I always like the design coming from this series, which leads me to the art. I thought the art in this chapter was good. It's nothing too special. It's just a normal chapter with a lot of, the main highlight is the design of that hero who looks like a villain to begin with, but the design of him is actually a reference from the mangaka old manga. Nice to see how he's treating his old work and actually putting them into the latest work, most popular work, so to say. The hero's great idea of the designs is always very fascinating to me because it's something that's like doesn't have to be too cliche or too generic, and even if he does do that, it always comes off like something like a reference to how comic books usually do. They're not really a major character nor minor characters, it's just in the background. At least they're going to spice it up this exam, because now we're going to see a lot of actions coming from the Gang Orca, and you see a lot of villains spreading out, and I feel like this is the best time to showcase a lot of improvements and developments from the other characters that's in the field. And I feel like Ochaku is going to be among them, as well as Choto and Inasa going to interact and perhaps show more rivalry development that's going to invoke between them. I'm not sure what Deku is going to go in. I do feel like Deku might get a surprise attack by Kemi, as she has wandering around, and I'm happy to know the name finally. But the point is, this is a setup chapter, which not much happened because it all talks about how the brain works for these students. However, the whole setup does intrigue me to see how the action is going to explode with all these heroes that were against each other. Now they have to either work together or just have to work individual and hope for the best they can survive and they don't mess up their exam points. This is something that either heroes has to work together or every man for themselves, and that includes leaving the citizens behind. Not much happened in this chapter, but I'll still say chapter 110 gets a 7. We are introduced to a villain, therefore this exam is going to the moments where these heroes are going to collide, going to see a lot of different interactions and a lot of development that may ensue a lot of more heated rivalry, especially with Inasa and Shoto. That's a lot of possibility of swirling around. This is a really neat setup, so the next chapter most likely going to be very entertaining. My thoughts are told, don't let yours on hold. Leave a comment below. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this and want more of this, subscribe to my channel and my world will be yours to stay. Until next time, take care.